Hello everybody and welcome back to Tyrion Cuthbert, attorney of the Arcane. Today, we are finally starting the trial. What the fuck? Well, we're gonna be prosecuting. We're gonna do things properly. We're gonna prosecute. We're gonna say objection, motherfucker. And we're still gonna play the same as when we're defending, but still, we're gonna prosecute. Your Honor, the prosecution. I would like to cross-examine the witness. Bailiff, arrest Mr. Cuthbert. I'm holding him in contempt. Oh, wait. I really didn't think this through, did I? Instead of following his order, the bailiff walked over to the judge's podium and whispered something into his ear. What? I see. Very well, then. What are they saying? What were they saying? It appears that Miss Steelwind has somehow predicted that this would happen. In accordance with her wishes, Mr. Cuthbert may act as the prosecutor in her stead. What? The paperwork was submitted shortly before the trial. Mr. Cuthbert is designated as her stand-in. It's unorthodox, but it's not without precedent. Miles Edgeworth did it. I remembered when Steelwind asked me something strange earlier. What would you do if you discovered that one of your clients was guilty? And what would you do if they were guilty? I suppose I'd withdraw and tell them to find another lawyer. And if no one else would represent them? I don't know. It would be a difficult choice for me. But I would never be able to represent them if I knew the truth. I don't think I could stand by and let a murderer escape justice. Steelwind. Did she somehow know this would happen? Well, this isn't how I expected the trial to go. Shortly after I barged onto the prosecutor's table, Celeste awkwardly followed behind me. Curiously... Shit, okay. Curiously, she only did so after the bailiff didn't arrest me. I guess we're really doing this. What's wrong? This feels weird. We're on the other side of the courtroom. I mean, this is where the prosecutor is supposed to stand. No, I don't like this. Ruby, can we switch tables? What? Your Honor, please ignore her. No, this is way too weird. Tyrion, file a motion. Get her to switch with us. Celeste? For the love of... I genuinely don't care. Cuthbert can have this side if he wants it so badly. I don't want it. With that out of the way, let's resume proceedings. Assuming that we're all at our preferred spots. We are, Your Honor. As much as I hated to admit it, I was more comfortable here. Not that I wanted to encourage her to do this again. With all of these interruptions, I think it is best to review the proceedings up until now. The prosecution proposed that Beatrice Frega's motive for the murder was to claim the victim's inheritance. However, Go down. Get down there, Flocka. Flocka! My god. Sorry. However, the defense brought forth a witness who testified that Beatrice was disinherited by her father 5 years ago. Am I correct, Miss Timora? Yeah, you are, Your Honor. No, you are, Your Honor. Very well. Considering the circumstances, I think it's best to have Lady Frege repeat her testimony. Bailiff, please escort Lady Frege to the stand once more. Miss Frege, could you please give your testimony to the court once more? Of course. Witness testimony. I'm still fucking sick. I'm sorry, y'all. After my sister's... Why is it worse? Why is my voice worse? After my sister's accident, my father said that she was unfit to inherit our noble house. He declared to our family that I would be removing her from his will. It was 5 years ago, but I remember it well. One day, we all woke up and discovered that Beatrice had fled from our home. She left a note for us, and in it she renounced her name and denounced my father. So, your father disinherited Beatrice shortly after her departure? Yes, he did. As such, Beatrice would have no motive to murder her father. Any inheritance she could have received would be long gone by the night of the murder. Was that really true, though? She's still green! After my sister's accident, my father said that she was unfit to inherit his assets. That seems awfully cruel of him. It was just an accident, wasn't it? My father was always thinking about the broader picture. He just wanted an excuse to punish her. He must have thought that this was for my sister's own good. She probably didn't want to speak ill of her father in the courts, but it seemed that she understood the type of person he was. He declared to our family that he would be removing her from his will. So, he was making a show of it and sending a message to the rest of your family. I felt a little guilty for doing this to her, but I would need to establish Beatrice's motive whenever I could.
Objection!
Your Honor, I find Cuthbert's comments to be extremely insensitive to the witness. I see no reason for him to speak ill of the deceased. I am compelled to agree. She was using the judge's fear of House Frege against me. It was 5 years ago, but I remember it well. You must have been less than 13 years old at the time. I can't imagine how that must have been. But can we really trust your testimony if you were only a child at the time? I remember it vividly. My father's words, the look of absolute fury on my sister's face. I even remember the way the sun was shining through the window that morning. It was all my fault. I remember everything. It sounded like a painful memory for her. She seemed to blame herself for what happened. It'd be best not to press her more than necessary. One day, we all woke up and discovered that Beatrice had fled from our home. That must have been a surprise for all of you. Did she tell anyone else about her plan? No, she didn't. She left without a word to anyone. She should have spoken with us first. She seemed to be sincere about that. She left a note for us, and in it she announced her name and denounced my father. From what I've heard about your father, I don't find that surprising. That's... It's clear to everyone involved that my client was not treated well by her father. That's what drove her to leave the Frege estate. My father had many responsibilities. He had much to consider. And that justified his treatment of your sister. Despite her being her witness, Miss Tamora really wasn't holding back against Miriam. I felt it while I was watching from the gallery. Part of her testimony didn't match with what I'd learned from my investigation. It must have been something that Leaf told me.
Objection!
Miss Frege, it's clear that you're regretful about how your eldest sister was treated. That guilt must have eaten at you after all these years. Cuthbert, I know you don't have a good history with the witness. But you shouldn't rub salt in her wounds. I was just pointing out the witness's personal connection to the defendant, Miss Timora. She clearly regrets not standing up to her sister after all those years ago. Up for her sister all those years ago. So perhaps she's trying to make up for that. By lying to protect her. Excuse me? I did nothing of the sort. Miss Frege, you testify that your father disinherited Beatrice 5 years ago. However, I have testimony from another witness who spoke with the victim on the night of the murder. After Beatrice's meeting with William Frege, he openly declared that he would be removing her from his will. He even entered his study to draft a new will to reflect that decision. So that raises the following question. Why would the victim need to declare that he was disinheriting the defendant? It doesn't make sense if he had already disinherited her 5 years ago. Is that so? Well, who did you hear this from? It's clear that they had no understanding of my father's estate. They had no understanding? Miriam, this testimony came directly from your sister, Leif Frege. Miriam grimaced. She probably didn't talk to Leif about this beforehand. And she should have also been present during this alleged meeting 5 years ago. Well, she must be mistaken then.
Objection!
Your Honor, how can we trust second-hand testimony from a witness who isn't here? Wouldn't it make more sense to have Leif give her testimony directly? I must agree with you, Miss Timora. Leif Frege should be allowed to clear up this misunderstanding. She looked way too confident. What was she planning? I'm not sure if it was intentional, but Miriam's testimony was clearly contradictory. Could she be lying to protect Beatrice? Miss Timora must be betting that Leif would do the same. Bailiff, please escort Leif Frege to the stand. Hi! Leif, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that your father decided to disinherit Beatrice. And he decided this after their meeting on the night of the murder. Is that correct? Yes, I did say that. You see, Leif, Cuthbert doubts the testimony given by your younger sister. He seems to think that she's committed perjury. What? I wouldn't go so far as to say, witness, lying under oath is a serious crime. It would have harsh consequences even for someone of your status. No, she couldn't have. Wonderful. Are you saying that you can corroborate your sister's testimony? Miss Timora, you can't just intimidate the witness. I have no idea what you're talking about, Cuthbert. I'm just informing the witness of the law. What she does is ultimately her choice. She really was as ruthless as people said she was. I just never expected to have to deal with this myself. So, Leif, assuming Miriam wasn't lying under oath, could you please testify to the court to confirm what your sister said? Yes, of course. You see, my God. Miriam was quite young when my father called us into his study 5 years ago. She didn't understand what he was really doing. My father would often lie to us. It was one of the many ways that he kept us in line. The encounter that Miriam described was just another one of his lies. Despite their disagreements, my father would never disinherit Beatrice without a good reason. Even when she left, he always assumed that she would eventually return home. The truth is that none of us knew what my father was planning for House Frege's future. That still directly benefits me. See, Cuthbert, the truth is much more complicated. No one could have really known what William Frege was planning for his estate. Leif wasn't trying to cover for Miriam. Leif was definitely trying to cover for Miriam, and Miss Timora was playing her like a fiddle. Luckily for me, she wasn't the only person who gave a statement to me. You see, Miriam was quite young when my father called us into his study 5 years ago. She didn't understand what he was really doing. So you're saying that Miriam's testimony was based on a misunderstanding? Yes, my father was never direct with his actions. He's always known just what to say to keep people under control. My father would often lie to us. It was one of the many ways that he kept us in line. I'm aware of how it sounds, but he had much to consider outside of his family. The Fragers are one of the pillars of Wyvern after all. Keeping the family aligned with our house's goals was one of his responsibilities, but we were his daughters. How could he be so cruel? It's clear that she didn't agree with what she's saying. She must also be trying to keep her family's name clean. The encounter that Miriam described was just another one of his lies. So you really think that your father would lie about something so important? It was of great importance. That's why he had to lie. He wanted to make us understand the consequences of disobeying him. What kind of father does that? A terrible one? But if he truly wanted to scare all of you, why wouldn't he disinherit Beatrice? Despite their disagreements, my father would never disinherit Beatrice without a good reason. Even when she left home, he always assumed that she would eventually return home. My father was always more pragmatic than vengeful. I imagine that he expected her to fail on her own, and if she ever came back, he would be forced to admit that she needed him. If he could make someone like Beatrice feel powerless, the rest of us would no doubt have fallen into line. Looking back, I suppose that's all we ever were to him, assets to be appraised and traded. I heard a bit of resentment in her voice. The truth is that none of us knew what my father was planning for House Frega's future. If that were true, why would he tell you that he was disinheriting Beatrice? Perhaps it was a warning. I had my own share of disagreements with him after all. I'm still not sure if he was telling me the truth last night either. That would depend on what Miss Timora and Beatrice discussed with the Duke. And right now, I still had no idea what they even talked about. Did William Frega really lie to them? From what we know, I honestly wouldn't put it past him. He clearly had very little respect for his daughters. But there were other people that he did respect. Right. Was there anyone else that he would have told the truth to? Okay. Father would often lie to us. Is it this? Your engagement?
Objection!
Yeah. Miss Frega, did you really have no idea about House Frega's future? No, I didn't. My father made sure of that. As I told you, he kept many secrets and wasn't above lying to us. But with Beatrice gone, you would have been the one to inherit your father's estate. Would you really be ignorant of your father's plans for House Frega? Unfortunately for you, I don't think you'd be that careless. In fact, I have it on good authority that you knew exactly how William's inheritance would be divided before that night. What? Leaf, according to Lloyd von Sanctus, you were arranged into a diplomatic marriage with his son. You expressed resistance to this arrangement, am I correct? I have no reason to comment on that matter. Cuthbert, the witness's personal matters are hardly any of our business. Yes, I must ask that you keep this discussion relevant to the case. Your Honor, Leaf's resistance to this marriage is exactly how I know that her testimony is false. She would make sure to know every detail about it, how it would affect her and her house. And that includes how House Frege would be inherited by her future husband. So that raises the question, Leaf. If you already know the intricate details of this marriage, why would your father tell you that he was disinheriting your sister? That statement would only make sense if Beatrice was already in his will beforehand. That would render Miriam's testimony false and constitute a motive for the defendant.
Objection!
It's a decent argument, Cuthbert, but it relies on one assumption. And what assumption would that be, Miss Timora? Even if he was lying, the victim declared that he was revoking Beatrice's inheritance. She must have been named in that will previously. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to say that. It wouldn't make any sense otherwise. And that's where your assumption is. You're assuming that William Frege was acting logically. What are you talking about? It's clear that William Frege was extremely controlling of his daughters. By your own admission, Leaf Frege was resistant to the marriage arranged by her father. In addition to that, Miriam Frege found herself wrapped in controversy regarding the Nightgrave trial a few months ago. And finally, Beatrice Frege, the prodigal child, finally returned and made a public spectacle of it during the Lord's Ball. What are you trying to insinuate? In his eyes, William Frege's ability to keep his daughters in line was clearly weakening. He must have gotten desperate and made a grand declaration in a feeble attempt to scare you, Leaf. Even if that declaration was clearly inconsistent. But he wouldn't... Your ability to remember must be muddled by the shock of your father's death. His statements couldn't have possibly been true. If by some chance it were true, that would make you guilty of perjury. Or perhaps it was Miriam that was lying in her testimony. If your father's statements were true, the court might be inclined to investigate her for lying on the stand. Miss Timora, are you threatening her? As I said before, I am merely stating the law. I'm just asking her to consider the potential consequences of what she says next. What do I do? Damn it. She was really persuading Leaf to side with her. She was clearly conflicted, though. Wasn't there anything I could do? I could feel a sense of clarity when I looked at her. Was the Eye of Force reacting to her stress? I'm sorry. I need time to think. Please don't stare at me like that, Mr. Cuthbert. Yeah, don't stare at her like that. Tyrion, focus. Wait a minute. Your Honor, I would like to... It was too late.
None can remain concealed.
I activated the Empower Eye once again. There had to be something in her mind that I could use. The state of her father's inheritance was the backbone of my case. Was there anything in her mind that could definitely prove what was on his will? As much as I hate to admit it, this trial is a perfect opportunity to back out of my marriage to Jaden. Von Sanctus' holdings are weakening by the day. I doubt he'll be able to put up much resistance. And once Beatrice inherits the estate, we might be able to rebuild our family. She was assuming that Beatrice would inherit House Frege. That confidence must have meant she was certain of what was in William's will. But how could I prove that? Her testimony, maybe? I need to make sure that I tell the truth without harming Miriam or Beatrice. Beatrice couldn't have possibly done this, and I'm sure Miriam also has her reasons. They couldn't rely on me back then, but they can now. I didn't get any leads from that. What? Why am I thinking about this? I didn't invoke any... Okay. Beatrice, after all these years, she's finally returned. I can't believe that this is how things have ended up. If only I were as strong as her, I'd be able to endure this. I think any leads from that. The fuck do I have to present, man? Father, I know we had our differences, but I did love you, and I never wanted you to die. She seemed genuinely surprised and regretful about his death. From our encounter earlier, I knew that Beatrice had an accomplice, but I doubted that it was Leaf. How did both of the swords find their way into Beatrice's room? Could Tracker have... No, Miss McCoy's sword is one thing, but he couldn't have possibly broken into the Heraldson Gallery. Although, he was extremely fixated on it. What? Did you know how Celeste's sword was taken? As much as I wanted to follow that lead, it would be all for nothing with the trial ended now. I needed to try something else. Okay. Just want to make sure. No, the Divine Etiquette. Okay. Why would Miriam say those things? Am I misremembering what happened? No, I would have remembered something like that. She must be trying to protect Beatrice. So Miriam's testimony was a conscious lie. Beatrice's inheritance wasn't revoked until the night of the murder. So what else? Okay. Beatrice, I can't believe this is how things ended up. If only it was as strong as her. Okay, yeah, it's that still. So much as okay, what the fuck? I don't know. What's the play here? What else do I have to present? Rats? Riverdimora, I've heard stories about her. I never expected Beatrice to hire someone like her. I wonder if she'll be at the will reading tomorrow. A will reading? Was it for William Frega's will? I believe you've had enough time for deliberation, Mr. Cuthbert. Are you able to prove the defendant's motive or not? I'm not, Your Honor. At least not yet. It's clear we won't get anywhere until we can confirm the state of William Frega's will. And we can easily confirm that tomorrow morning, when William Frega's will is read to his family. How did you... I see. Once his will is read, it will become public record. I see no harm in waiting until tomorrow morning. I have no choice but to suspend this trial until William Frega's will can be read.
Objection!
This is ludicrous. The case against my client is completely outrageous. We spent the entire court proceeding arguing if her motive even exists. The prosecution has very little evidence that physically implicates my witness.
Fuck.
Miss Timora, you clearly don't believe that the defendant has anything to do with the murder. Of course I don't. She's completely innocent. Well, if your client didn't murder the victim, who did? Aha! We get to throw that back! We get to throw that back at her! You little... Your Honor, with no other suspects, are you in a position to pass a verdict? No, I am not. I felt about guilty for using this trick against Miss Timora, but I knew Beatrice was guilty. She'd always taught me to use any ploy I could to win anyway. Mr. Cuthbert is correct. The court does not have enough information to pass a verdict. Until the Inquisition has time to investigate these new developments, I will be suspending today's trial. We will resume the trial tomorrow afternoon. Court is adjourned. Well, that happened. Sorry, I kind of acted without thinking. But the weirdest part is that Steelwind somehow knew you would do that. Right, that is strange. Did she seriously predict what I'd do off of that one conversation? Considering how things turned out, she was right on the mark. But that was still a gigantic gamble on her part. Anyways, we have some time to ourselves. I'd really like to catch up on some sleep. Yeah, today's been exhausting for a lot of reasons. And my work has only started. I still had no idea who Beatrice's accomplice was. The will reading was just an opportunity to buy us some time. So the question remained, who really murdered William Frege? What the hell was that? Why is your son filling in for Arya? You told me he was harmless. Listen, I have the situation under control. If that's true, I'd hate to see a situation you consider out of control. Eris? My father is not pleased with today's developments. You promised that the verdict would be passed before William Frege's will became public record. This has thrown quite a wrench into the plan. I understand. Cuthbert is just confused, but he's not a threat to us. We'd better hope you're right, Timora. Or else your poor ward might suffer the same fate as Prosecutor Steelwind. What? House Frege is too important a prize for us to let it go. Bring us results, Timora, or else we might continue to take more drastic measures. Okay, we're going to investigate more. It's kind of weird being the prosecution. Like, gameplay doesn't change whatsoever, but we're prosecuting! It's not like an Edgeworth's game. We're at crime scenes, doing everything. No, we're in a courtroom. Anyways, we'll do some investigating next time. Bye-bye!